my daughter and my grandson on that plane.
Don't get too close to the door.
This is Navy Search Base. Go ahead, Navy Search 5.
I've located the aircraft at coordinates given. Aircraft is completely submerged.
DANGERFIELD, Dangerfield.
Good morning, people. I haven't read this article, but the headline gives me all I need to know that it's likely to be relevant. So let's look into this. From the New York Post, FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. The FAA, what is it? The Federation of Airline Administration. Basically, it's the governing body of aircraft and flying you around the world, which is nice because, you know, everyone needs to be involved. Let's kick into it. This video's got nothing to do with it, which is a little bit frustrating. Let's make sure you can see that line. Here we go. Oh, here we are. The Federal Aviation Administration is actively recruiting workers who suffer severe intellectual disabilities. That we used to call that stupid, but that's not nice, because if you put disability at the end of it, severe intellectual disabilities, it's now a condition. It's now something that needs to be included in that's the inclusive part of diversity, inclusion and equity. Now maybe there is something they can do, people with severe intellectual disabilities, maybe there's something they can do. If you want to read the DSM-5, you can download it. Just type in DSM-5. That's the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, version 5 of psychiatry. And it will blow your mind, because what they do is they just put disorder or disability at the end of something that used to not be considered a disorder or an illness. It used to be considered sometimes, often, behavioural. For instance, there's something in the DSM-5, opioid use disorder. So you're not just using opiates, heroin, fentanyl, etc. No, it's a disorder. So no agency required, no responsibility required. You've got a disorder. Oh, I can't stop. I just... There's another one in it. Oh, I should have looked this up, but I obviously didn't know it was coming. There's another one. It's something like social. Hang on, I'm going to pause it and I'm going to find it because it will blow your mind. Hang on. Here we go. I've even got the page up for you. Oppositional defiant disorder. It's an illness. You've got it. It's something you've got. What did you get close to someone who had it? Possibly. Look at some of the things. So with the DSM-5, what they have is a box of checklists, and it'll be something like has exhibited this, has expressed this behaviour twice in the last 6 months, and if the patient has, they tick that, and then there's a few of them, and it will say at the top, patient must exhibit 3 of the following in the last 6 months, or 2 of the following in the last 4 weeks. It's all like that. So this is oppositional defiant disorder. Here's a few of the symptoms of that illness. Often argues with authority figures. Often actively defies or refuses to comply with requests from authority figures or rules. Oh man, I've got oppositional defiant disorder. Terrifying. Often blames others for his or her mistakes, because it's always your fault when things go wrong in your life. But it's not as well, because you've got a disorder. So that is the reason I bring that up, is because if you suffer from severe intellectual disabilities, when that plane,
Don't get too close to the door.
you know, it's not on you. Nah, I've got an illness. Well, you shouldn't have had that job then. What are you saying? That's not very inclusive, is it? Just because they've got severe intellectual disabilities. Let's read on. Blah blah blah. Worker is actively recruiting workers who suffer severe intellectual disabilities, psychiatric problems. Please just go and have a look through the DSM-5. It will blow your mind. Not only the disorders in it that I think they've like quadrupled in 30 years. Don't quote me on that, but it's something like that.
Intermission.
Over 20% of the adult population in England was prescribed a psychiatric drug last year alone. Over 20% of the adult population of England was prescribed a psychiatric drug. 16% were prescribed antidepressants, the rest antipsychotics, stimulants, anxiolytics, etc., and so forth. And this figure has doubled in the last 15 years.
Now, this isn't because people have got sicker and there's more people with mental illnesses. It's because they've invented more mental illnesses and they've just attributed more behaviours to pathologies. The way people behave is now considered a disorder, a disease, an illness. Yeah, go and have a look. It'll blow your mind. Okay, severe intellectual disabilities, psychiatric problems and other mental and physical conditions under a diversity and inclusion hiring initiative spelled out on the agency's website. Now, that isn't on the agency's website, the FAA's. That's not on their website because they've had to put it there. It's not like some sort of data, access to data thing. Oh no, that would have gone up, boom, day one, quick, get it on the website. I mean, it's become a cliche, but don't let that not let you use it, because the idea of a cliche is sometimes a method of censorship. That's virtue signalling. It just is. No, we're hiring everyone. We are hiring everyone. Doesn't matter if they're not quite able to perhaps do the job, or certainly not as able as someone else. I think that's key here, really. Yes, certainly someone with severe intellectual disabilities might be able to do a job, but I'm going to guess that if someone hasn't got severe intellectual disabilities, they're going to likely be able to do a job better, unless the job is to run around the plane being a lunatic. I'm just going to throw that in there. Targeted, can you see this? I'll just move it up a little bit. Brrr. Actually, I think we'll be better off giving it a bit of that. There you go. Targeted disabilities are those disabilities that the federal government, gulp, as a matter of policy, gulp, has identified for special emphasis in recruitment and hiring. The FAA's website states they include hearing, vision, missing extremities, partial paralysis, complete paralysis. Now look, if you are completely paralysed, awful, a horror of a life. That's like one of my biggest fears, to be completely paralysed. And things should be done to make people in that situation's life better. I get that. But I'm not quite sure whether employment in the airline industry is necessarily the right, I'm just going to put that out there, is the right area perhaps, for those people. I'm guessing there might be some sacrifices, you know, there might be some compensations, there might be some compromises perhaps to include them, and sometimes that might be a little bit problematic. Epilepsy, severe intellectual disability, psychiatric disability and dwarfism. The initiative is part of the FAA's Diversity and Inclusion Hiring Plan, which claims diversity is integral to achieving FAA's mission of ensuring safe and efficient travel across our nation and beyond. Doesn't seem to add up. The FAA's website shows the agency's guidelines on diversity hiring were last updated in March 23rd, 2022. The FAA, which is overseen by Secretary Pete Buttigieg, we know the fella, that's enough, you know what I'm talking about. Department of Transportation is a government agency charged with regulating civil aviation and employs roughly 45,000 insane people. All eyes have been on the FAA and airline industry in recent days after a plug door on a Boeing 737 MAX 9 blew out during an Alaska Airlines flight on January the 5th. You know when you watch those airline movies that are terrifying and everyone's sitting there and there's a nun and there's like someone playing a guitar and there's a baby. Oh no, that's Airplane. That's not the one I'm talking about. And then the door goes poof and all the air gets sucked out. Ah! That's what that plug door is, because you're really high up in the sky, so you need to maintain a certain amount of air pressure in the aeroplane. The FAA grounded all 737 planes after the incident and is carrying out an extensive inspection with intellectually disabled people and maintenance work. I mean, I think you get the idea. Following the incident, social media commentators and public figures have charged the airlines and airline manufacturers' emphasis on diversity, equity and inclusion, also these days known as DEI. I mean, you know, why would you have an anagram like that? It's almost like it's a kick in the nuts, isn't it? Has made flying less safe. Do you want to fly in an airplane where they prioritise DEI, diversity, equity and inclusion hiring, over your safety? The answer's no. They're from me. Let me know in the comments how you feel about that. Said tech billionaire Elon Musk on X last week. That is actually happening, is what he also said. The DEI rot in the airline industry is way worse than you think, Daily Wire commentator Matt Walsh wrote in an op-ed last week. Dr. Stanley Goldfarb, chairman of Do No Harm, a group of healthcare professionals, medical students and policymakers working to, quote, protect healthcare from a radical, divisive and discriminatory ideology, told Fox News Digital that similar to the medical field, the aviation industry has an obligation to protect its travellers. The aviation industry has a responsibility for traveller safety, just as the healthcare industry has a responsibility for patient safety. These responsibilities outweigh other factors when considering applicants to work in these fields. People with disabilities who can successfully complete the task should never face discrimination, said Goldfarb, a retired professor and the former Associate Dean for Curriculum at the University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine. Unfortunately, Goldfarb said, identity politics is, quote, creating opportunities for so-called oppressed groups by lowering standards for entry into those fields and thereby endangering the safety of those which it's designed to serve. Some endeavours simply do not lend themselves to identity politics, he added. Great.
Sweet. sweet.